terribly painful thing because the pleura has a lot of pain fibers in it, and sometimes the simplest shot through the chest without any serious damage in it is a terribly painful wound. And so what they got me doing a lot was I used to sit there and block them. I'd start at the top and hit the rib, and then right underneath the rib is where the nerve is. I'd just put a Novocaine in and just start marching down the ribs. And these guys had been in terrible pain, and of course they had given them a lot of morphine on the way back, evacuating. They're all in good shape as far as blood pressure and all that stuff, but they were terribly painful. And as I walked down the back, pretty soon the guy would go right over like the morphine would get him, and he'd just head first right into the ground. A couple of them would, because the pain was relieved. They were gone. See, and that was one of the things that I did that I was very appreciative of. Most of it was just debriding and getting the clothes off them and finding where the wounds were, getting them x-rayed to see if they had to have x-rays. If they were bellies, why we always x-rayed them, see if we could find where the bullet was so we know where to go there. And it was that kind of stuff. The neurosurgery, we didn't have to. So neurosurgery injuries to the brain and so forth, those individuals are usually pretty stable as far as blood pressure and all that concern. You don't have to worry with them. So they sent them right on back to the evac or the general hospital, because where there was a neurosurgeon, we didn't have to fool with them. But we had the bellies and the chests because those had to be worked on right off. And I did some of that. We did colostomies most of the time to bypass the colon and get the thing out.
Were most of the people that you saw relatively recently wounded, or would they be people who had
within the bellies and chests would be probably there. Well, of course, when we were down there around Vanafro when the mules were around, it would probably be 6 hours. But other than that, they were probably just an hour and a half or 2 hours at the most.
But I'm just thinking, just what you said, 6 hours on the back of a mule with a belly wound.
Oh yeah, it'd be awful. Yeah, it would be. I don't know that they put them on a mule. I don't remember how they did that. Anyway,
maybe a litter between.
I think a litter. They used to had wheel litters and stuff like that. I don't remember just exactly how that happened, because what happened is a lot of times they would bring them to a trailhead, and then they'd put them in an ambulance. So when they actually came to us, they were riding in an ambulance. So I never saw how they actually got. We used to see the mules out there all the time running around, but I didn't know how they transferred them, and I'm sure they transferred them as quickly as possible to a vehicle. The Jeeps they used a lot because they would put them across the front of the Jeep, across the back. They could carry 4 stretchers on that.
Probably there wouldn't be much that could surprise you in a trauma center.
Oh no, I don't think so. I don't think anybody around here. Of course, the automobile accidents and stuff, but I got some of that at Fort Bragg. But no, I don't. Strange things happened. We had an officer who was driving down the road, the Jeep, and an 88 hit right under the Jeep, completely destroyed the vehicle. It was. I saw the vehicle. It was completely destroyed. He didn't have a lick on it. Didn't have a mark. Didn't have a and the colonel said, "You're going to give him a Purple Heart?" I said, "Hell yes, I'm going to give him a Purple Heart if we're just shock, if nothing else." But he said, "Look, we had to look him over." That was really. I was thinking, see if he had anything. He said, "I don't think there's anything on me anywhere." Then, in contradistinction, let me tell you the other thing. We're standing in a building. I wasn't there this day, but this is a story that was told to me. And this is when I was with the artillery battalion, and they were all standing in there, and the shells were landing in near our battalion position, and they were all standing there watching it and seeing what was going on, because there was nothing coming near there. And all of a sudden, this guy slumps and drops. Everybody looked, what's the matter with Joe here anyway? Is he just fainted or what from what? So they looked him up, and God, he was dead. And so that's what I got into. They brought him down, and I looked him all over, and I couldn't find a thing. What the hell's going on? So I said, well, the only thing we can do is send him back, and I'll request him to do a post, because I said, we don't have any idea what he's done. Well, I got the report back. A piece of shrapnel went in just behind his eye and cut his brainstem inside. And he had a little ecchymosis of his eye, but nothing. So, I mean, there's the contrast of a shell going right out, destroying the vehicle and the guy and another one standing there. So you never know how things go.
Now, when the you didn't end up in the Pacific, I take it?
No,
Or did you?
no. I got on the ship, and we set sail from Leghorn, Livorno, and we were going to the Panama Canal, and on the way to the Pacific, and we had already gotten some preliminary things. We were going to be. I was with a medical battalion. We were going to support a certain corps, that was going in ashore, and they had more or less already decided where we were going to go ashore. And we were probably 2 days, 3 days out from the Panama Canal. I don't really remember exactly to that when they dropped the atomic bomb. And then, of course, within a day or two, they dropped it when we were mid-ocean, and then we still went on, and then the VJ day came, and they diverted us to Newport News. And you have never seen anything yelling and screaming on a ship the way we turned Newport News. So when anybody starts talking to me about how horrible it was that we dropped the atomic bomb, I don't have any sympathy with them. They don't have any idea of what they're talking about. And I always say to them, which is worse, to die from an artillery shell or to die from an atomic bomb? Which one which do you think is worse? It doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Sorry for the Japanese, but the Japanese were not sorry for us. I still have I don't know, I have a bias that I can't get rid of.
An awful lot of veterans feel the same way.
And I don't know, the same way, a couple of times we went on a cruise ship one day, and I was just sitting at a table or something, and the German was going on me back and forth. Now all of a sudden I realized my hair stood straight up on the end, because if we heard any German going on, it was bad news. And the same way with the Japanese. December 7th, I don't remember the year, but anyway, we went to Hawaii, the football game over there.
Mm-hmm.
You remember that?
Yep.
And December 7th occurred on Sunday, and we took a boat and went out to the ship there, the Arizona. And the thing that just appalled me was that 75% of the people on that ship are Japanese. All of them. In fact, when they made the announcements, we're doing so-and-so, they made it in English and they made it in Japanese. And then we got on shore, and I looked down there, and I saw that 1,200 people down there in that water. Can't help but be a little bit worried.
Yeah, I know. It's some things I was only 11 when the war ended, but I sort of began to come of age in it, and I think for those of you who were actively involved in it, and those of us who were just a little younger, we think of that period very differently, and we always will.
Well, for some reason or other, I've had a lot of association with veterans who were in the Bataan Death March. The chief of urology at Letterman, when I went to that thing there, was Jack Schwartz, and he was in the Bataan Death March. And Dana Nance, I don't know whether you've probably heard of him. He was here in Oak Ridge, a surgeon, and then Anna Nance, his wife, she was on the city council. They were very active. He was in that too. And I think 4 or 5 or maybe half a dozen I've known intimately. And the treatment of those people was probably the worst of anything that has ever been. And I don't care how many Japanese complain or anything else. If they had been on that thing, they were kicked, they were booted, they were done everything to. Actually shot if they dropped down. And it was just a brutal affair all the way. And if you watch that movie on with Alex, where he was in the
bridge on the River Kwai.
The bridge over the River Kwai. All of that is they say that's just absolutely true.
Right on the money.
Right on the money. Very brutal treatment. And and now in Japan they won't acknowledge any of that stuff. And it's the Korean women are bitching because they use them as whores and everything else. They did a lot of very bad things.
I interviewed a fellow who was on the Bataan Death March named Clarence Daniel, who lives up in the La Folla area that way. And when the interview ended, I said, you must have built up a very great hatred for the Japanese. And I said, how long did it last? He said, until today.
Oh, I tell you, I don't. I haven't been able to agree. Germans, we had some atrocities done, but we had some American atrocities. I mean,
those things happen.
Those things happen. We had some Americans line up some Germans and up in the mountains there. They caught them and executed them. I was told that again. I didn't know about that.
That tended to happen some if you captured SS.
Yeah.
I know somebody from the 3rd Infantry who, from Malmedy on, they didn't take an SS prisoner in his unit.
Yeah. I understand that some of that went on. We had, before I went back to the hospital, you and I still with the field artillery. We were up in the Po Valley there, and the artillery is a scream anyway. They don't get any hand-to-hand fighting. They just sit way back with these big guns and shoot, and then somebody else will shoot back at them. There's a lot of casualties involved, but they don't get any hand-to-hand fighting. So they don't know anything about that. So anyway, we had a two-way radio on that thing, and the call came over. They were looking for me because there was a group of SS. That's what they said. Anyway, I don't know. I didn't know enough to know about it. But anyway, in this building, and this is in the Po Valley, that hadn't surrendered yet. And it was one of our platoon commanders anyway, and so he was going to capture him. Colonel McBride also would come on the phone. He says, "No, you don't." He says, "You don't know enough about infantry tactics to do anything." He said, "You wait till I get there." And he called on me. He said, "You better get there too, because we want an ambulance in case anybody gets hurt." So I roared down the damn highway. It was a beautiful road down there, and it was this beautiful pink Italian house. I still see it now, So the story was the Italians said that there was about 20 SS troops in there. And of course the Italian was scared to death, and he was all jumping all over the place. It was hard to make heads or tails out of it, but anyway, there were Germans in there, and they were going to fight. So the colonel said, okay, he said, we're artillerymen, so we'll do artillery. It's a 155 howitzer. So they wheel up this 155 howitzer. And I thought, God, this is probably 50 yards, 100 yards away. This is point blank range. I said, what the hell is he going to do? And so he said, okay, open the breech. And I said, what are you going to do? He said, well, you look down the barrel. He said, I thought, oh God, I've never thought of that. You look down the barrel. So he said, okay. He said, let's bring up a shell. He said, and leave the carrying ring in. You know, they carry the shell. They have it screwed in the top, and they carry it with a thing. You know, like, bring the carrying ring up. And so they ran and
put a fuse in it.
Yeah, don't put a fuse in it. So he said, put that shell in there. And he said, you fire it. And that goddamn thing fired, and I tell you, whoa, you could hear it going in. See, it was all, that carrying ring was all making a hell of a noise. And it hit that house. Everybody come out with their hands up. He said, that's the way an artilleryman takes it. Oh, I got a kick out of it.
A lot to be said for that.
Yep.
So, did you stayed in the military for a while after the war?
Yes, I stayed. I got my training in the military. When I got back, we had our leave, and 30-day, a 60-day, a 90-day leave, I guess it was.
Saw your wife?
Yeah, I was up in Vermont, and then I...
Had you had a chance to see your wife before you shipped out for the Pacific? Or
No, I was going direct.
Yeah.
No, we went back. I went to Newport News, and then I went home through Camp Devens and got 90-day leave, and then I got my orders to go to Fort Benning. So I went to Fort Benning, and all I can think of the word is that I retired the outfit. In other words, I had to fill out all the forms and all that stuff to disorganize this medical battalion, which I'd been in. And then they sent me from Fort Benning to Fort Bragg. And I was in because I was regular Army, they put me in the headquarters of an Army, their 3rd Army headquarters in Fort Bragg. Beautiful office and everything else. I was a major then, I think. And God, there was nothing to do. And I just died. And finally I told somebody that, I said, geez, I got to find something to do here. And while they were having me write disaster plans or something else, just busy work. So finally I got them to let me go over to the dispensary, and I went over there and worked some over there. And then I had applied for professional training. And then I got assigned to William Beaumont in urology, and I was interested in that. And we were down there.
But you had to do a variety of urological work?
No, I had been interested in it since I was interning. When I was interning at Fort Sam, I had a little South African. He was a lieutenant colonel he was, who was an outstanding, well-known national urologist, and he was he's a funny little old guy. Vermooten, his name was, Dutch, Vincent Vermooten, and I was very fortunate because my wife got a job driving a truck in the motor pool, over at Fort Sam Houston. And because we didn't have a whole lot of money, and I was only making about $60 or $80 a month, and they'd taken most of that for laundry, so I didn't have any money. So she got a job driving a truck, and she had to get to work at, I think it was 6:30 or 7 something. So we only had one car, so that meant I went at 6:30 or 7. Well, this old Vermooten was kind of a thing about early morning, being there early and getting on. So every day when he showed up, I was already there. And all these other interns, hell, they were drifting in at 8:30 or 9 or something else. I never did tell him why I was there, but God, he just thought I was the whirlwind. And he let me do all kind of procedures, all kinds of things, and I just was interested in it. And it really sparked my interest. And then when I went after the war, I went to William Beaumont. I was down there, had a nice guy there that was the chief of service, and I worked there for about a year and a half. And then I got in a formal residency program at Letterman, and that's where Jack Swartz was. He was the battalion. Jack had been one of the doctors that took care of the people and everything. And boy, it was interesting because I used to be with him a lot, and these people that he knew on the battalion would all stop by to see Dr. Swartz. They wanted to see him because they'd all want to talk with him about this had happened and that had happened and all that stuff. So I saw a lot of those people. We even had General Wainwright there, for a while. He had a amoebic abscess of the liver, or something. He had a really disastrous time, but he finally survived it.
He had a tough road to hoe.
Oh, he did. He was just skin and bones. I never saw anybody. His arms were just about that big around, And it was, as I say, those Japanese were not very kind. That's when we got we got ready to go over there. That's one of the things that we did. We were handed a 45, and we had to take our familiarization course and pass it, with a 45. But that's another thing I should tell you. I never was very interested in. I was always glad that I didn't have to shoot at anybody. I didn't particularly, somewhere in my background or something or other, I got the feeling I don't want to do that. And I don't know exactly why. But one day at the artillery thing, they said, Doc, you want to go up to the forward observer today? And I said, sure, I'd like to go up and see what you all do. So we go up at night, you see, and then you stay all day because you don't move at all during the day. So sure enough, I went up with them at night, and we got up on this side hill, and remember there was a fence, and there was a little trench drawn in there, and not very much, see, and they all had the big spy glasses and all this stuff. And it was very quiet that day, so there wasn't anybody else, and so this was a state because you couldn't go back until night. So it got kind of boring up there, and so somebody said, gee, I just saw somebody go in that house over there, and it was a big house sitting out in the field. So this lieutenant up there said, well, Doc, says, let's see how you are at shooting. I said, what do you mean, see how I am at shooting? And he said, yeah, he said, we'll let you do the shooting here. And I said, well, what do I do? He said, well, I'll give you the coordinates. And he had the map there. And he said, you figure out what you want to do here. And so he helped me along with the figure and everything else. So we called back and said, okay, 1 round. And so called back. And these artillery people are so funny. On the way, see, that's what. So you sit there, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. I didn't even hear the damn thing. It sailed over, and it hit in the field behind the house. So he said, all right now, Doc, he said, you figure out how many yards that was. And he said, now you want to fire another round, but he said, you want to be sure you're short this time. Either hit it or be short. So we figured out slide rule going on this thing. Okay, on the way. Sit there, sure enough, the damn thing landed in the field short. Now he says, you got him bracketed. And I said, what do you mean bracketed? He said, you got one long and one short. He said, now you can figure out where it is. So we figured it out with the slide rule and everything else. Said, that's what you want. So and I said, well, what do I do now? He said, well, you call back and you say, for the battalion, fire for effect. So I picked up the phone, fire, battalion, fire for effect. Of course, they all knew it was me, and they could tell my voice on the thing. Jesus. And that house just went boom. It was gone. And I always say that was the only time that I did anything to anybody. I don't know whether there's anybody in it or not, but somebody said they had seen somebody go in it. So that, I don't know to this day whether I actually. But that was a very interesting thing because in the future, after that, you know, when you're on the other end, you hear one long, one short. Ooh, wait a minute now. Where's the next one going to be?
Makes you careful. Makes you careful. How long did you stay in the service?
I stayed in a total of 14 years, 15 years. I got my training at Letterman, and then I finished up in Augusta, Georgia, at the University of Georgia. And then I went to Fort Bragg, and I always say that here I had 3 years of residency in urology, strictly urology. Well, most places they require you to have a year of general surgery before you go into urology because it's a surgical specialty. Well, I didn't have that, but I had the 3 years of urology. I went to Fort Bragg, and I walked in, and Colonel Ball was there, and he looked at me and he said, "You want to know how much general surgery I had?" I said, "Well, I haven't had too much, but I've done some overseas and one thing and another." He said, "Well," he said, "you're going to do urology as a hobby here." He said, "You are a general surgeon." And man, I tell you, they put me to work in general surgery. And everybody says in the Army, you know, the big cry is we didn't get to do anything. We didn't do anything. God, they worked my ass off.
Sounds like you did everything.
Yeah. Oh, we had a lot of hernias. I used to have a standard diet of 4 hernias in the morning, every morning. And then I was on call sometimes every third night. And we had the right age for an appendectomy. I've done as many as 4 appendectomies on 3 consecutive nights on call. And then get up in the morning and still do your 4 hernias. And beside the trauma, we had a lot of that. But of course, I didn't have much to do. We had a good orthopedic service, so if there was any fractures involved in it, the orthopedic service took care of it. We had a good neurosurgeon, so if it was a head injury, I didn't have to worry about that. And I did a lot of surgery at Fort Bragg. There were a lot of it. And I was there 3 years, and then I went to Panama, to Gorgas, and a hospital in Panama. And there I did just urology. And it was a very active service. We had people, Americans from all over South America would fly there, you know, to get medical care. They didn't like the South Americans. And then we had a lot of stuff off the ships. And we were in the Canal Zone almost 3 years. And then that's when my dear wife, who was a school teacher, we had one that was 10 years old and one that was 8 years old. She didn't think we were getting very good schooling. And so, and then on top of that, I came back up here, flew up here, went to the Surgeon General's office because I wanted to find out what they were going to do with me because I knew my tour of duty was getting over with down there. And I always remember because I got in there and I knew this guy because he'd been a surgical resident at Letterman and they'd busted him out because they didn't think he was a surgeon. But anyway, he was sitting up there as the personnel director in the Surgeon General's office. He said, "Let me get your 201 file." And I always remember they had an endless chain. The damn thing came down from out of the ceiling or something somewhere. And he opened it up and he said, "You didn't go to Korea?" I said, "No." And "You didn't go somewhere else?" I forgot else. I said, "No." He said, "Have you been to the Command and General Staff School?" And I said, "No." I've been in hospitals all the time. Well, he says, "You're going to have to go to the field." He said, "You're going to have to go to the Field Service School, and you're going to have to go to the Command and General Staff School." And he said, "If anything happens," he said, "boy, you're going to be number one because there's only, I think, 5% of the regular Army Medical Corps that didn't go to Korea." So I took that all in, and I went back down the Canal Zone, and I said to Agnes, "This is the time we go." We hadn't been able to resign up until then, but at that time we could. I said, "First of all, I don't want to be under the gun to go anywhere. And the second, if you're not happy with that," I said, "I'm sure I can make a living." So I resigned and came from there here. Yeah. I was going to go to the University of Georgia because the guy that I had trained under down there wanted me to come there as an assistant in teaching. And I was almost set to go, but I just didn't, I don't know, I just didn't like the University of Georgia in those days Georgia was not the best place in the world. And I didn't like Augusta. And so for looking through the books, my wife came upon Oak Ridge as a good school system.
Yes.
So that's where we wound up. Colonel Ball, who had been with at Fort Bragg, had been out of the Army, and he was here in practice. And he wrote me a letter, and he said he thought that the urologist, I forget his name, Murray, who was an alcoholic, they just busted him off of the staff, so there was a vacancy here. So I came here, and we have been very fortunate. We had 4 kids go through the school system, and 3 got advanced degrees, and as I always say, 3 of them at least are making more money than I ever did. I got a lawyer that's in the 300,000. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? Yeah, she's in line, female. She's in line to be general counsel for State Farm.
Very good for her.
But she was a hard worker. She went to the University of Chicago. She went to the University of Chicago Law School. All premium stuff all the way through. You've had enough of me here.
Following is a voice-over commentary done by Dr. King of a videotape of film which he took while on military service in Italy.